Welcome to the Outdoor Biz Podcast, where each Tuesday, your host, Rick Sayes, gathers around the mic with outdoor industry entrepreneurs, brand leaders, founders, and enthusiasts to share stories from the backcountry, the startup files, and the retail aisles. Rick's guests offer actionable advice to land your ideal industry gig, grow your outdoor career, or plan your next big adventure. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss a single episode. And now, here's Rick.
Are you hungry for adventure and connection? Episode 372 of the Outdoor Biz Podcast features former pro snowboarder and Saturdays co-founder Josh Rosen. As host of Huckberry's recently launched series Dirt, Josh shares how the show reconnects and inspires viewers to explore the world of adventure, the outdoors, and cooking in the wild, their backyards, and homes. It is currently streaming on Huckberry and YouTube. Welcome to the show, Josh.
Yeah, Rick, thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun chat. I'm interested to learn about this new project you guys are working on. It sounds pretty cool. Must be pretty fun. How'd you get connected with Huckberry?
Yeah, it's been a really lovely experience with Huckberry. Initially, we worked on a project where Kate West, who's the content director over at Huckberry, reached out to me because she had been in New York when I was there and worked for a nonprofit bringing kids out to the beach to surf and up into the mountains to snowboard from the inner city, which was really cool. And we helped out with that in any capacity we could at Saturdays. And she had moved on and started working at Huckberry and asked if I was interested in doing it. So I sell a really amazing product called the 72-hour shirt, which is it's all the bells and whistles, antimicrobials, sweat wicking, all that great stuff. But you can essentially wear it and do anything you want for a couple of days without a wash. So it's a great shirt to camp with and literally anything you're getting into.
That's cool products. It's amazing.
The new fabrics. We could go crazy with that.
Huckberry does a great job, though, of curating that stuff, right? There's a lot of great stuff out there, but those guys somehow just curate it down to the perfect mix, or a really good mix anyway.
I think you're exactly correct. What they're doing is they're giving space for those products to live in all sorts of environments, right? So as we recognize that these fabrics are superior in a lot of ways in how they feel on your skin and how they keep you warm and keep you dry and that sort of stuff, I think it's potentially difficult for the big outerwear guys to direct their consumer as to how they can wear that in their daily life. Has always done a really good job of that. And I recognize I've been a fan of Huckberry's for a really long time.
Yeah, me too.
Seen how they've done that because lifestyle brands that have a outdoor component to them, I think really have trouble. Not trouble. We know a bunch that are obviously very successful at it, the big guys, but the Huckberry's approach is great because with the content they're delivering, it's just every guy. It just makes you feel like.
And they also make you feel special and like a superhero. That's the thing about their content, the way they write in their descriptions. And I was working for Aquatech for a while, and we launched this new phone case, which was doing pretty well. And I couldn't wait to get it in the hands of Huckberry because I knew they'd do great things with it. And I'm not sure how well it sold, but their description was just like, oh, wow. There's an underwater aquatic guy, I forget what they called it, but it was just, I got to have that for my phone. What's the deal? I think that's just what they do best is the curation and then the descriptions to sell what they've curated. Fantastic.
You're absolutely. And they're also just very empowering to get out and live your life in cool, but also approachable ways. It's
right.
I think that speaks to the show. It's like what you can do out of the city that you live in. You don't need to go to an exotic location, although the show will soon be going to some exotic locations. But so far we've been just in some cities in the United States. And it's like, you got 3 days, you can jump a Southwest airline flight to Minneapolis. And within a couple hours, you're in these incredible spaces, meeting incredible people. And it's not a travel and leisure exotic thing, but it may as well be because it's.
I bet it's going to be pretty cool. Yeah.
It's going to be pretty cool. So
before we get to the show, tell us about your cooking chops.
Yeah, sure.
So is that why you're there? Because you can cook?
It's interesting because the show, it always starts with meeting a chef.
Okay.
And the chef always asks, or has so far, are you a chef? And my answer, and the first time I was asked that, my response was, no, I'm just a cooking enthusiast. I'm a food enthusiast.
Okay, good.
And I think it's pretty much stayed the same. But it's an interesting question because I spent my life, I was a bartender in restaurants and bars when I wasn't doing other stuff throughout my life. And similarly to we were talking about fashion, I just wanted to be close to the kitchen. I wanted to be close to food. I didn't have the design school for being a designer, but I got there. And I didn't have the culinary school, but I got there just through curiosity. And so I worked at some great restaurants in New York as a bartender, but the rest of the food component would close and the bar would keep going. And I would make sure the chef and all the sous chef and everybody had drinks, and they would maybe let me back in the kitchen and let me play.
Fun.
So I've just always been, from a young age, really interested in food and curious. I think that partially comes from my dad, who would, he would explore by taste. And just so there was a few trips to the emergency room after some questionable mushrooms, but generally you can taste anything.
Yeah.
We have this, especially now, and I think a lot of people with the over the fire cooking trend or the foraging trend or anything where or hunting is becoming more popular, I think, outside of the rural areas where it was initially popular. But I think people are getting back to trying things that just exist in our land and our landscape, and getting away from processed foods, obviously, things that are not organic. As I think like organic, that is just a catalyst to literally like growing your own food with soil that
just natural, right? Yeah,
just natural. So my dad was just to an extreme. It was funny, but like he would pick up a leaf off the ground. He had never seen it before and put it in his mouth, and it was strange, but like oftentimes we would do it. And you'd find some like sweetness at the base of the flower that you taste or something like that. Yeah. And then we'd boil that down. And so my dad had this great curiosity.
Interesting.
I think inspired me to have that same curiosity. So my food, I would say I'm a good cook. I can cook food, but I am really excited about ingredients. And I just will spend entire days searching for weird ingredients out in the world just to try something new. Yeah. So I think maybe more curiosity than culinary expertise.
Gotcha. All right. That's good. So you're probably you're going to fit right in on this show, I'm sure.
It works for the show because it's, again, what you can discover when you're curious about food helps you unlock a place.
And that curiosity helps you. It's like podcast, doing what I'm doing. The curiosity helps you ask questions that are not completely out of left field, because you're curious about the food side of it, the cooking side of it. So the questions are going to hopefully make sense. And
absolutely. And I think that's a good point. It's about honing questions so that you get the most like information, right? In this,
that's good.
It's the same way when you're with people who are passionate about oysters or the butcher shop that they own, or I'm just going through, we've had so many amazing different people aboard, like the guy who's fishing for crab or whatever it is. It's like the excitement they have for this ingredient that is their livelihood just changes that ingredient, right? Yeah. It makes it just grows it, so that every time you go to eat a meal or you go out to forage or whatever it is, if you have that sort of a little bit of that passion and excitement that you gather from these people, it just really opens up the landscape to a world of delicious treats.
Yeah. So how did the idea for Dirt come to life? Great name, by the way.
Oh, thank you. I'm not responsible for that, but I will tell Kate West that you said that. So Kate West came to Seattle to do this article for Huckberry with me about wearing the shirt. And we went out for 72 hours. It's the 72-hour shirt. And so that's the deal. It's like, what can you do with this shirt in 72 hours? And I loved that task because I have always loved to see how many activities I can get accomplished in a day. And so they came out and we went out to one of the San Juan Islands, which is our little chain of islands out here in the Sound.
Beautiful spot.
And it's a special place for sure. Absolutely gorgeous. And we went nuts. We did. The list is long, but we had these amazing couple of days. And somewhere in that time, I posed to Kate that I had this idea for a food and adventure show where essentially we do what we do on Dirt, which is that we go to a place, we meet with a chef, or the initial idea could also have been like somebody who's very connected to food in that city. And we got some information, and that kind of set us off on our journey. And we went outside of the city into the, what, depending on what city it is, like whether you're in the country or you're in the ocean or wherever you go, but to these places where these people are gathering food, gathering ingredients, farming ingredients, raising ingredients in a way that is like really special to them, which is, I think, the connective piece that is, I felt was a bit lost for people with their food. That when you go to the market or the grocery store and you see these 8 zillion different things that you can buy, you lose the connection from that food to where it started. You have an assumption of as to if it's farm raised or not, or net caught or what have you. But it's I wanted to connect that food to those people who are, again, growing it, raising it, passionate about its quality and the details that make it a really high quality product. I think an initial idea was also just exploration and connecting to food. But I think that we have found pretty quickly with the show that these people are the connective tissue for the show. It's just incredible. You go, my brain at crayfish farmers in Louisiana. Cool. Their world was just the heritage and it was his great granddad who started it in 06 and this little, you get these stories. And at the end of the day, you might be on Bourbon Street eating this crayfish and have no idea like what it took to get this beautiful thing to your plate. And so that essentially that is dirt. And then what's really nice is we gather all these ingredients and we come back to the city, which is where usually the chefs are, and we cook up a meal. And it's with those ingredients. And it's such a rich experience to watch these chefs take with the stories from the purveyors, right? With that passion. As we're cooking, we're talking about all of those experiences that we've just had with this food. And I think it, again, connects the chef to the food, even though they're obviously very connected to those ingredients. I think it really, that meal, it tells a whole story of that meal. And the idea is just to be more connected to the things that we put in our body. And it's been
where they come from and how they get there.
Amazing.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah.
And it's been this really great journey.
How is this show different than other adventure travel shows? We know of a few adventure/food.
Sure. I think it's interesting. It's like until you work in a space, you don't really look at that space that deeply. And after working in this space over the last year and going around and looking at other adventure shows or on things like YouTube, Catching Cooks or food adventure pieces, just feels a lot of those shows, and nothing against them, there's some really great ones out there, were really about the chef or the host. So a lot of times there's like a celebrity attached to it or a celebrity chef. And you oftentimes find out a lot about that chef and their likes and dislikes, or that celebrity and their likes and dislikes. And with our show, I don't want you to see me at all. I want you really to see the people that we're going to meet with. I want you to experience these places and these passions. These people's lives are dictated by these passions for these amazing products that they're, again, raising or harvesting. And that's for me, I think, the piece that makes it different.
So it's going to be the whole, literally, from the dirt to the table, so to speak. Whatever the ingredient is, whether it's a dirt or a farm, an animal, whatever, you're going to go deep into that, right to the cook, whoever's cooking. That's going to be interesting. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, that's it.
Pretty cool. So what goes into deciding where to go? Is it driven by the food sources, the sustainability?
It's a great question. I think we started in Seattle with no real distinct plan where we were going to go next, because it was a trial episode. And I think it was meeting with the people in that first episode in Seattle or Washington State that we realized we can go anywhere. It was really liberating, right? Because initially, maybe you got to go to these really important big cities, or it was a lot of discussion, but really we can go anywhere.
Yeah,
we can go to, and we've gone to New York City as this last one, but we were in Minneapolis, and then we were in New Orleans, and there is amazing things happening everywhere.
Yeah,
it's just about going and looking. And so I think for us, a balance of places that are very obvious, like a New York City, mixed with places like a Minneapolis that are not necessarily places you like first on your list to visit if you have a weekend off. And then, of course, like, it's important that the product that Huckberry is selling in the season. I'm very connected to that because I my fashion brand for 10 years. So I'm very connected to like
it's in your blood.
What clothing you're, yeah, exactly. So that has something to do with it, I think, but it's a really nice balance of those things. And then it's just it's another extension of curiosity with my creative partner, Kate. We just talk about what interests us and what gets us excited. And then there's some logistic pieces, but then we land on a plate and off we go.
Yeah. So you don't actually work at Huckberry, but tell me about the brand. Was your perception of it beforehand and after you started working on the show, did it change?
It was a great beginning to it because I told you I worked on photo shoot about the 72-hour shirt. And I've always been very employee focused. My company, I think that the people that you have, if they are, and I'm sure you experience this, if you go into a place where the employees are not treated well or not respected or not supported, you just feel it immediately.
You can smell it.
You can smell it.
Yeah.
And then you have these places where you can see that these people are respected and are paid appropriately. And all of this right off the bat with Huckberry, because there was a photographer and the producer and these people were on the shoot. You just sensed that this is a place where people are respected and that it felt very similar to Saturdays in that everybody felt like it was a common goal to deliver something that we're interested in. And I always say that we have these coffee shops at Saturdays. It's like, and that's the first thing you see when you walk in. It's like, hey, that person coming in has no idea. Maybe their very first time, and they may be an 85-year-old grandmother visiting their grandson in New York City, or they could be. New York City is not a great example because people come from everywhere,
all over the world,
ages, shapes, and sizes. But what an opportunity that is, right? For you as the barista to interact with these people. And I need you to treat everybody with the same respect. And that was the energy immediately that I got from the Huckberry folks. And that was I just felt it right away. And then I met with Andy, one of the owners, and we had a very similar beginning to our company, almost identical actually, in that there was only two of them and three of us. But it was like, I think to the dollar, I think they each put $10,000 in.
No, I think
initially.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and it was like they put everything on the line. Like everyone around them was, "What are you doing?" Saturdays, people used to, "What, you were putting a surf shop in New York City? Are you out of your mind? No one surfs there." And it was the same thing with these guys. I think they were just like, saw something that they cared deeply about and they put everything into it. And I think that's what makes it, because they still do that today. They're just still so passionate about that, every piece of that brand. And so I don't work directly for Huckberry. I'm doing this project for them, but I feel like part of that family. That is important to how I work in the world. Like any project that I do, I feel like it's really important that we're all like passionately pushing a cool goal. And that's outdoors, right? That's like if you go on a big hike with people or something, or you're rock climbing is a great
big river
example,
trip,
right?
exactly.
Big river trip. The river trip is a perfect example, right? It naturally happens, right? I think work potentially can be more forced, but that's how I went down and visited everyone down there at Huckberry, and it feels like a really supportive family. And for that reason, just super happy to be working with those guys.
Yeah, I felt that same thing. I went up with Scott. We went up to, I forget what we were selling, but we went up there and visited him in San Francisco. And you just walk in that office and you feel like you're home and you feel the energy and you know that, something's happening here. That's pretty cool. Yeah. So how many people are on your crew? Do you have, when you guys go out and do the shoots and all that?
We are a skeleton crew.
Light and fast.
We're light and fast.
I like it.
I think what's interesting is I think in our crew, it's a bunch of people who have worked within sort of like very close to what we're doing, but never done exactly what we're doing. Our filmers is a film duo. These guys work shirt who have done tons of really cool adventure commercial work.
Oh, cool.
So like Yeti and these.
Those are great commercials.
Just these really cool, interesting things. And this is their first way into some more of a narrative or a show. And I think Kate and I are similar. I've definitely never been the host of an adventure TV show. And Kate is a content whiz, but I think this is her first journey into this narrative thing. And so there's something lovely about that, right? Because we're this just ragtag group of like excited, curious folks. But it is, yeah. So there's 4 of us, which you need to, because these places that we're going would be overwhelmed, I think, with any more than that.
Yeah. Yeah, there is for what you're going to accomplish, there is a minimum and maximum, right? You can't have 6, that would be too, and you can't have 2. So there's got to be, for what you guys, it sounds like what you guys are doing. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's very real. Reality TV is a funny thing. I was once on a room remodel show for something. In New York City, you oftentimes are hit up for funny things, but it was with my girlfriend at the time, and it was hilarious, completely scripted, right? Like, they would say, all right, now you say this and now you do that. But then they edited it, so it seemed like there was all this drama happening. Anyway, it was very enlightening. And so when I went to make this show, I wondered how much of it would be scripted, or would we write anything? And there's none.
Wow, cool.
I don't meet the people that we're meeting with beforehand. We actually do it intentionally.
Oh, I love it.
Don't meet them. If we pull up, I'll hang back, because when we get in there and we experience it, it's gotta just real. And you can see it. It's rough. It definitely feels.
I watched a couple. Yeah, it looks good.
Yeah.
Because
it's honest, and in a world of scripted reality, it's nice to have something that's just real.
Well, the authenticity comes shining through too. I think that's what makes it, from the food, from you guys, from the cooks, from the chefs. You can tell that you're really in the moment doing it.
I'm glad to hear that.
Fantastic. Yeah. So can you share anything with us about projects in the pipeline?
So we are headed off. I'll say this: we are leaving.
Don't give anything away. I don't want to get anybody in trouble.
We're leaving the country.
Oh, cool. All right. Awesome.
Which is really exciting. And I'll leave it at that.
There you go. That's good.
But we're continuing on to new continents, which is really exciting.
And it might be a little early for this question, but where do you hope the show goes next, from location you're going to go out of the country, but from an adventure or storytelling standpoint? Are you guys still figuring it out as you go, or do you have any?
I think it's interesting because we're all, the group of us, passionate about our careers and our lives and the things that we do, and we found this nice space where we come together and the passions align, and we just go. It's pretty lovely. It's a very natural and enjoyable experience. I think we're just going to keep enjoying that as long as we can and see what happens. But yeah, there's nothing written out. There's no distinct plan.
Yeah, sounds good. So it sounds like you're having a lot of fun. So that's helps keep the flow going and keeps the energy going. That's fantastic. Yeah. How did your outdoor lifestyle begin?
I was born and raised in Seattle to 2 very different parents in terms of the outdoor lifestyle. My mom is from Oregon, lived in a van, was a river guide on the Salmon River, and then met my dad, who is in New York City, born and raised, moved as far away from New York City as he possibly could, and stayed in the continental U.S. I think he used a piece of string to see which one, San Francisco or Seattle, was further, because he hated it. I mean, this is the 60s, right? And he wanted to just be outdoors. He had this kind of romantic vision of the outdoors, and he assumed Seattle would potentially have all the things he had seen in magazines, I believe. And he got out here, and he had no practical experience with the outdoors at all, but just went full in. I'm a product of someone who knew how to put a tent up, how to stay dry, and then just pure enthusiasm, no experience. And so it was just a beautiful kind of entrance into learning about the outdoors, because it was like I was learning along with my dad, and then our mom was always there to protect us. And then as far as being outdoors as activity wise, my mom was a skier. And so when I was 2 years old, I still have the skis. My mom put me on skis, and she said the first day I was on them, even at 2, there was just something natural about it. And so that was a catalyst for me on skis. And so I skied every weekend as a kid until I found the snowboard. But just being in Seattle, your access to the outdoors is incredible, right? We have a little bit of everything from the desert on the east side to our Cascade Mountains, and then the Sound, and then the ocean, right? So we just have unbelievable access to incredible zone.
And did you guys do all the things? Camp, and then go do all the fishing, hiking, biking, everything?
Yeah, as I said, it was like you had to take my dad into consideration there. Like he really had the passion, but none of the practical experience. So our hikes were a couple of days here and there, and he found the Olympic Peninsula early on and fell in love with it, particularly La Push, which is an Indian reservation. There's those books with the vampires and the werewolves that became very popular.
I don't know about those, but yeah, I'll look them up.
No, it's like a teen book series that turned into movies. Anyway, the only reason I bring that up is because that is the only reason anyone would know about the bush. Because it was kind of based around that area. But he found this zone, and there were these beautiful hikes where you go down one trail to the beach, and you would just hike over headlands along the beach and camp out for a few nights. And so that was the extent of that kind of overnight camping. But as I got older, yeah, the schools here are really supportive of being outdoors, and especially the ones that I went to. So there was a lot of outdoor camping and hiking and that sort of stuff happening through the school. And it's just, again, just minutes away from Seattle. You're really into some unique space. So I've always been an outdoor person, and then I was just a boy who would just spend my entire afternoons in the park catching frogs and doing that sort of stuff.
So you're one of those. I think those of us that are of a certain age, we were all like that back then. All we did was go out. Even if in the cities, I grew up in a small town, Fontana, California. It was east of LA, and when I grew up, there was nobody there, but you could just go wander around these empty fields where now there's houses everywhere. You're right, chasing frogs and throwing grapefruits in the grapefruit tree groves and whatever.
That's it. And I think I'm sure you've had this conversation with many people of our generation or around our generation where that was just a standard practice.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because I think people who are part of the outdoor community are finding this passion in the outdoors, are trying to replicate that for our children. And it's an interesting thing because you have to force it in a way, right? You have to be like, all right, go. And they're like, wait, you're just going to leave me in this space? And then it's not as common as it was, but I think all of us have that in us, that kind of spawned the beginnings of these great explorations, because that's the beginning of exploration.
I was going to use that word. You nailed it. Yep. Yeah, we just explored things and discovered and on our own. So tell us about your snowboarding career. Obviously, skiing led to snowboarding, and then you became a pro, right?
Yeah, so I skied. It's interesting because I got to a certain place in skiing, and then you either go, in my time, you were into racing, or you went into like mogul skiing or freestyle. It wasn't a big free ski community. And I watched snowboarding come up, and it was all free ski. It was like the original free ski. Like they just went everywhere. There were no rules. And I was a skateboarder, so that sort of energy just like I knew, right? I was like holding on to skiing because I'd done it for so many years, but I was like, there's something about that. And then it just felt more like skateboarding, like you're a rebel too. And 13-year-old little guy wants to be a rebel and explore that side of himself. So the middle school I was in had a ski bus, and there were the cool kids were snowboarding, and I was like, all right, I'm going to try it. And I remember it's my local hill here, one of the local hills, and it's the smaller of the ski areas around here, but I know exactly where I linked my first set of turns on a snowboard. I can see it every time I go up there. And it's nice because that moment was that was the catalyst. I was like, okay, this is beautiful, flowy, and that sort of thing. So anyway, snowboarding just took over, and I went to a special high school where I only had to go once a week so I could take snowboarding as a job. And I started actually snowboarding professionally when I was 16, which in retrospect might have been a little bit young because I just beat the heck out of myself. But for about 4 years there, 16 to 20, I rode professionally, and it was a really amazing time in snowboarding. Snowboarding became a thing in the late 80s, right? I was able to watch really the early beginnings of this sport. And then when I was a professional, it was just the Wild West. People were just trying stuff out, and new tricks were happening all the time. So it was a pretty magical time. But yes, at about 20, I had broken a few things, chipped a few things, and I retired, I guess, as it were.
Wrap that up, yeah. So that must have been a pretty fun time. You get in the kind of the foundational edge of all these activities, snowboarding, and there's no guardrails. You can just do whatever you want, and it's all accepted. And then all of a sudden they have to put some guardrails on for pros and races and things, and it conforms it a little bit. But that's super fun, super explorational again, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was really amazing to see a sport like that begin because you knew it was just like a landslide. Some sports start in foil surfing or something. You can see that there's a barrier to that, right? You're going to get to a certain point and then it'll probably be in this certain area. But with snowboarding, you were watching mountains have to accept and adapt and people to accept and adapt. And skiing was a different sport before snowboarding. It really had a different energy, and you think of Sun Valley and this, or Warren Miller, one of the greatest documentarians of anything, did such a great job of showing really what skiing was. And when snowboarding came along, it was this great shift, and it was cool to watch people adapt and understand, okay, it's this whole new thing, and we're going to have to make friends because we're all going to be on these chairlifts together. And It was definitely, looking back, really cool to see. And we go to these events around here. We have the bank slalom up at Mount Baker here. That's the oldest contest in snowboarding. And you really have the very first people that were snowboarding. And then you've got, and they're the grand masters. I can't remember. They're in their 70s. And then you have these little kids. And so to be able to have an event where you have the people that started the sport and then the guys and gals who are just at the beginning, it's pretty unique. I think.
Cool.
And
very unique.
It's cool to see.
Yeah, awesome. Good for you. And then you co-founded the surf-inspired brand Saturdays. What was your role there?
So I moved out to New York. My dad's family was in New York City. And so my entire life I visited and knew from a very young age that I wanted to be a part of New York City at some point in my life. And the second snowboarding ended, and I did call a little bit of college and bummed around a bit. So I realized that was probably a good time to make the shift to New York City. And I worked in fashion for 6 or 7 years and different components of it, trying to find my space there.
What'd you do there?
So I'd always been interested in fashion since I was a young kid. Just visit those New York trips would just light up. And living in Seattle, you were then, and to some degree now, it's just not a very fashion centric place. It's a land of waterproof clothing and comfortable clothing.
Yep.
And that doesn't lend itself generally to cutting edge fashion. So going to New York, it was just eye opening. And there was something, the way people dressed and their independence, the styles they would create for themselves that were just so uniquely them, but somehow looked right. There was something about that always intrigued me. And so going back to New York, I don't have a fashion design background, but I am curious, I think, in my nature. And that's the way I deal with. I just do every job that I can close to something until I find the right space. So I worked a little bit of retail, and then through retail, I worked into wholesale. And then that was the bulk of my initial fashion experience, was selling, at the time, the first raw denim, high-end European raw denim to boutiques. And then at some point, and no offense to salespeople, it was a life experience I use daily. But you could be selling anything, right? You're not really part of that. You could be selling any widget. It just happens to be.
You're really lucky if you're able to get into something where you really get behind and sell it and are passionate about it. You're fortunate if you're that kind of sales guy. But yeah,
that's it. A great bit of wisdom that an old garment at the Magic Trade Show in Las Vegas once told me was, sell something that sells well.
That's good.
And I thought, and I said it to me, and it took me a little bit to let that sink in, but it's essentially sell something that is not, it's going to be, the process is going to be easy and your life will be easy, sort of thing. I chose denim in a world of place where people had only worn in Levi's or like pre-washed and that sort of stuff. So I chose the opposite of that. But yeah, it was a great experience. And through sales, you see all the pieces, touch with it. You talk to design because you need them to design a specific thing. You talk to manufacturing because if there's an issue that you're getting back from the customer, then you can describe these buttons fell off, whatever it is. So you're really engaged with everybody, but you're not really in control of much in terms of design or creative. And
that's well said.
And I was raised by very creative mother, and it's always a need for me to at some point be creative in what I do. And so I saw design as like, okay, that's the place where I want to be. But I really had not a lot of experience doing that. And when my buddies came to me discussing this idea for a surf shop, I thought maybe that'd be it, right? So we'd open the surf shop and then maybe we could design our own. And it was this great experience, the classic New York experience where we came together, we found a little spot in Soho, and this is 2009, and so we're in a recession, which is actually a really great time to open something new and unique. And I'll explain why. We were able to find a location very inexpensively because a lot of stuff was closing down. And we were also, because we were so unique to that landscape, we garnered a lot of attention from the press because we were just an interesting thing without any marketing dollars. Because marketing dollars had pretty much dried up around the city, and we were just filler for these magazines. They're like, oh, 3 guys open a surf shop in Manhattan. It was just, that's all you needed for the attention. And then we delivered a product, I think, that spoke to people's fashion sense in New York, and their excitement for something just different. And I was just in New York to launch this episode of the show we're doing, and it's constantly reminded how much that city supports people who are passionate about whatever it's like. You see it, you can feel it, and you can see things that are not as well, that are built at a marketing table. And then you can see the things that like people really have just poured their heart and soul into. And that's what was happening with us. We were 3 guys who surfed and were outdoor guys who had found ourselves in New York and wanted our lifestyle, because there was nothing like that happening in the city. Because it's funny, when you're a surfer in New York and you want to get a bar of wax, which, is something you need all the time, you have to go to the Quicksilver store or the Billabong store on Broadway, on this major thoroughfare. It's called Never Ending Mall strip of box stores.
Concrete jungle.
You walk in concrete jungle, but you walk into these stores and no one surfs and no one has any idea what that they're selling has anything to do with the activity of surfing. But it just always felt so fake and forced. And we were just like, why don't we put something together that is just our lives? It's the clothing we wear. And initially we sold other people's brands, third-party brands. And it was just the clothing companies we had worked for. At that point, it was like anyone who would give us something free so that we could, not free, but really,
you probably got good deals
terms.
Or good terms. Yeah, exactly. Being in the recession.
Great terms. Right. Like, just sell it, and when you get the money, give it to us, sort of thing.
Right.
And
never.
And we all each put in $10,000. And that was the build out of the store. We built a coffee shop in it, which was included in our, I think we had $27,000 initially, the budget, and all the clothing that we bought, everything had to fit within those parameters. And the initial lease paid the first and last. It was just skin of our teeth to get it open. But as I was saying, I think people would walk by and see something was happening there.
Yeah, do the double take and go in and check it out.
And do the double take. We put surfboards by the window, and I think that was a big drive for people, because they're like, what is this back street of Soho, cobblestone street? So anyway, fast forward, after 10 years, we had this same energy, same kind of like creative force, but we had expanded to 4 stores in Japan, 2 stores in Australia, a couple of stores in New York, and then a store in LA, which was great. And then a big wholesale form, which was really important.
That's some big growth. That's serious.
It was really fast, and it was great. But I think for 3 young guys who had never done anything like that before, it was thing and challenging.
I was going to say, very fun, but very taxing. Yeah.
In that order, yeah. But go ahead.
So why did you leave? Because of just got burned out?
A bit of that for sure. I lived at that point in New York after 10 years with Saturdays, and then 6 years of being in New York. Before that, for 15, 16 years, and being a kid from the mountains and very connected to that, there was a longing that I couldn't block out of my mind anymore. And I had to come home and be back in my cozy space. I think New York City is a place where you either come and you feel like this is it, right? This is the rest of my life, this energy level, this pace, or you feel like you're visiting. Maybe for 16 years, still, that it's not home. It's not necessarily home.
Yeah,
and it feels, going back, I always feel that same way. It's like I'm connected, and at the same time, I feel a little bit like a circle being tried to push into a square, because it's not the perfect fit. It's not me. And I also had a child.
Oh, okay.
And I had, as we were saying, I had this kind of amazing childhood in Seattle. I just had access to so many amazing outdoor things, and I really wanted that for my kiddos. And when my kid was about 2 or 3 and starting to really move around and explore, it was like, all right, let's hightail it out of there. And so
that makes sense.
Very lucky that my 2 business partners were willing to buy out my shares and send me on my way, which was great. And I've been back now 5 years in this beautiful neck of the woods.
Do you have any advice or suggestions for folks that might want to get into the adventure biz or outdoor biz? Into the stuff that we've made a life out of?
Sure. I think for me, it has just always been curiosity, right? And exploration. And with the surf shops, I have lots of young employees who are starting their careers as whatever the beginnings of whatever they would be. And I've had that question come from young people. And my answer to them was to experience, find the space you want to be in, and then experience as many pieces of that as you can, because it really takes doing a lot of stuff to figure out exactly what suits you. And I think that we live in a world now where everything's quick and online and fast. And I hope that people are still having the experiences of like going into a factory that makes the thing that you are interested in, right? Or seeking out the fabric manufacturers and like digging in and just getting yourself immersed in whatever you're excited about, and just like experience as many pieces of it as you can before you settle into your groove.
And you may never settle into your groove. You may continue to just go do those experiences. That's what I'm doing.
You may start as a snowboarder and end up as an adventure TV host.
That's it. Yep, that's it. Yes. Start out as a river guide and end up as a podcaster. Look how that happens.
That's it.
Do you have a favorite piece of outdoor gear that's under $100 that you always have with you, you must have with you?
I love that question. I've been fishing my whole life, and I discovered this last summer, and I've seen them in the landscape, but is this Tankara fishing rod.
Oh yeah.
And it was funny. It's just a totally different thing.
It is.
And it's like anywhere you are that there is water, it breaks down into this tiny thing, and you can whip it out, and it's this beautiful, it's its own unique cast. But anyway, I had a ton of fun with that, and I keep that in my pack at all times.
Very cool. That's a good one. Yeah, I've got one. I haven't used it as much as I should, but it looks pretty fun. I've done it a couple times. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Are you a big reader? Do you have any favorite books?
Yeah, I do love to read. I feel like I'm very similar to a lot of people lately, where I listen to a lot of stuff.
Same.
And I'm a little nervous about that.
It's different.
Voracious readers, and I grew up surrounded by books, and I read a lot as a young person, but I tend to listen to a lot of stuff. But I have been trying to buy paper books of late, and my most recent book I bought it's a translation of the Tao Te Ching by Stephen Mitchell.
Okay.
And someone had, of course, posted an image of one of the pages of the book, and it just landed on me, because the Tao Te Ching is just is that sort of thing where you could pretty much open it to any page, and it was written 4,000 years ago or something, but it is so wise.
It still hits you in the side of the head, right? You're just like,
still hits you. And it's just these really simple explanations for very complex things. Right. And we live in a world full of very complex issues. So it's just, I don't know if it's just calming, but that's my most recent book purchase.
Good one. We'll link that show notes off to get a copy of that too. As we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to say to our listeners or ask of our listeners?
I'd love it if you go watch the show. And one cool thing, that the world we live in now, if you have any insight into what you liked, what you didn't, or what, you can always comment on the bottom, and it's encouraged. And that's about it. I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, and we better make sure everybody knows the show. The show's called The Dirt, or just Dirt?
Just Dirt.
Dirt. And where can they find it?
You can find it at huckberry.com. You can also find it on YouTube if you just type in Dirt Huckberry, or you can find it in my bio of my Instagram.
Perfect.
Which is Rosen, my last name, 43.
Awesome. We'll put links to all that stuff in the show notes for sure. And definitely go check it out. I've watched a couple episodes. It looks pretty darn fun. If you guys ever find your way in Bishop, give me a holler. We'll do a podcast episode down by the river or something.
I like the sound of that. Appreciate that.
Right on. Thanks, Josh. It's been good talking to you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Outdoor Biz Podcast. Be sure to visit our website, theoutdoorbizpodcast.com, where you'll find show notes with links to everything we talked about and more. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss a single episode. And while you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes. Or spread the word and tell a friend about the show. That would really help us out too. Be sure to tune in every week. And thanks again for listening to the Outdoor Biz Podcast with Rick Sayes.